So here's a key: get along well with others, right? And so what I mean by that is men of a certain stature, of a certain value, masculine men, the woman they want beside them, they want them to be able to represent them well in public. They want them to be able to get along and play well with others. They don't want the drama queen, right? The one who makes it hard when you go to the business meeting or the Christmas party, or we can't go around in groups of friends because you're always getting into it with someone, right? So getting along well with others is a nice feminine approach, because when you seek your femininity and you're kind and you're nice, then you don't have a lot of room for conflict all the time, right? And so for me and for a lot of men, getting along well with others, I've actually seen men not date women that they were extremely attracted to because they couldn't get along with anybody else.
Yeah, my husband sometimes refers to those individuals as people who can't work or play well with others.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing. And that's a real thing, especially when you're out amongst other people socially or professionally or things like that. You want to be with someone who you know is going to be someone you can be proud of, or someone that you can feel comfortable with. They're not going to like sabotage your career or your social life, right?
Yes.
Or your relationships with your relatives.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a practical thing, but it's extremely important.
Okay, good.
There are a lot of women who desire to compete with men in conversations a lot of times. So they feel like they have to assert themselves and be loud, right, in order to prove a point. When truly, you can still be soft-spoken and have boundaries, and still be soft-spoken and still be assertive. But it's something about that softness and that kindness that draws men in, okay? Versus the boisterousness. It kind of is like, who is that? You know what I mean? So it becomes like a competition when really what you want is the men to lean in and hear you talk. Okay. Yeah,
you don't necessarily want to be one of the guys and in the way that you speak. And I do think it's soft. It's maybe that softness in tone. It's also, I believe, a warmth. Like when you described kindness, I think a really feminine quality is warmth. And that warmth can show up even in the way you speak, in the way you talk, in the way you address someone. I think it can be really powerful. I think a woman and her tone of voice, in addition to what she says, is really powerful and can be very attractive.
Absolutely. Even with women that are in relationships, how they speak to their man. They tend to get way more accomplished with that man when they speak in a softer, kinder tone. They could say the same exact thing in a very boisterous tone that is met with defensiveness, right? Because now it feels like a competition.
Absolutely.
So it's really important to just watch your tone. So remember, we talked about receiving with grace and feminine energy being a receiving energy. Well, this one says, learn to listen. That's a part of receiving, okay? Is when a man speaks, most men, I will tell you, one of the top 3 things that men complain about is not feeling heard by their women, okay? And because of that, when you learn to listen genuinely and make what he's saying feel important, and you validate his feelings, you validate his perspectives, and you actually receive it without thinking about what it is you want to defend yourself with or what you want to debate with, it's an extremely attractive trait. When you can just sit there and say stuff like, tell me more about that, right? Oh, that's interesting. I want to hear more. Like things like that are very feminine and very interesting because men carry egos, right? They want to feel like they are being listened to. But what I found is a lot of times now it's women are competing in the conversations. Not saying that you can't have a voice. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is allow the man to finish his thoughts before you interrupt.
Well, I think that's so powerful. I think one of the biggest gifts we can give to each other as human beings, and especially in relationships, is our presence, and meaning our attention, our focus. So we're really there with them when we're there with them. And how rare that's becoming in our world. It's really a power that it becomes a very powerful and rare commodity. And you made me think, Troy, a few years back, I did an interview with Alison Armstrong. I've done several with her. And of course, she has decades of experience in studying men, women, and relationships. And one of our interviews was specifically on how to listen to men. And one of the things that she said wasn't about how to talk to men, although that could be another topic. It was about how to listen to men. One of the things she said was, a lot of times as women, and I'm sure this happens with men too, but we're addressing women, we're so busy thinking about what we're going to say next. And we're so busy with our own thoughts that we aren't really listening. She also told me that giving a pause when a man is speaking to make sure there's a little bit of space after he finishes a sentence or whatever before you jump in, oftentimes will bring more. He'll actually have more to say. But a lot of times we jump in so fast that there's really not that opportunity. And I loved what you said. What else would you like to share with me? Or is there more there? Because then that gives a man really to have that opportunity to speak. And, women complain because men don't speak or they don't talk enough sometimes. Mm-hmm. And part of that could be sometimes we don't give them enough opportunity.
There you go. This is a key one. It's just be appreciative. Appreciation, in the spirit of appreciation, in the spirit of wanting to thank him for the things that he provides. That's another thing, is a lack of appreciation is a big complaint from a lot of men, is they feel like the things they do aren't acknowledged and they aren't appreciated, right? Because what ultimately ends up happening is there's this mindset of that's what he's supposed to do, okay? But that doesn't mean that he doesn't want to be acknowledged and appreciated. And it doesn't really take much. So a lot of what I've learned is a lot of women will say, well, I don't have time to stroke his ego all the time. And I'm like, make the time to. Because if you want repeat behavior of those actions, he needs to feel like you appreciate him. Mm-hmm. Okay? So appreciation is extremely important. It's extremely feminine. And I think men love it. That's how you ever see people, you ever see two different types of women where like some can get anything they want out of a man and some can't get anything out of a man?
Yeah.
Right? A lot of it comes down to these feminine traits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and this one I think relates back to the receive with grace, because I believe that part of receiving with grace is not only having that openness and that willingness to receive what a man has to offer, but then acknowledging and appreciating what he brings to the table. Because I believe, first of all, yes, you're going to get more of that. The reinforced behavior will be is more likely to be repeated. But also, I think as women, we don't fully always understand how meaningful and significant that is to a man, to feel appreciated, to be acknowledged, to know that what he provides. And I'm not just talking about providing from a monetary standpoint, his presence, his advice, his wisdom, his support, all of the things that a man can provide to a woman are acknowledged and appreciated. I don't know that we as women can fully, or you typically do fully understand how powerful that can be.
Yeah, it makes him feel like he's doing a good job. Mm-hmm. And that's what ultimately men want to feel like. Men want to make women happy. Like women that we care about, we want to make them happy. And so we want to know, did I do a good job? And a lot of times the only way to know that is by hearing from her that she acknowledges and she appreciates it, right? Otherwise, men grow resentful of doing things. They're like, I don't know if I'm doing a good job, and she doesn't acknowledge it, so she doesn't care anyway. So yeah, so it's a small thing, but it's huge for men.